Hey,
Yes, we can.
fantastic. Okay. So this is going to be relatively short tonight, but that's okay. We just wanted to go over this and appreciate Melissa going through all of that. If you have any questions about that, you can always talk to her. And we're admitting people. Okay. So for our State of the Church address, I wanted to kind of explain where this all came from. And the idea, oh, there it is. See, it's got motion in the back now. Um, one of the things that we do, let me kind of explain church governance here in the scriptures. So when you look at the Bible, sometimes people ask the question, well, who leads the church? How does all this work? And when you look in the scriptures, you're going to see a few different kind of models, if you will, of how churches were led. The most common one that you see is that the Bible talks about elders and elders overseeing the work of the church. There's also the role of the evangelist. There's the role of a teacher. Ephesians 4 has got stuff. First Timothy, Titus. There's a few different things, a few different ways in which you can kind of govern a church. And what we do in the Greater Cleveland Church of Christ is we have what we call a leadership team. Since we don't have elders, the leadership team is kind of our makeshift form of an eldership. It's not a biblical eldership, but it's kind of, they try to, it's our pseudo eldership that kind of puts together and oversees the work of the church. And on that leadership team is myself and my wife, Norm and Chris Steiner, John and Tammy Fowler, and Miss Maria Elena Barros. And the that's our leadership team. And so we make big decisions, we make little decisions, we make all kinds of different decisions. But we meet once a month and just talk over different things in the church. But every so often, we like to get together and have kind of like an overarching, weekend together where we just kind of talk about the future, where we talk about kind of the 20,000 foot view, if you will, of the church. And so for this particular year, we got together, oh, I don't know, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, somewhere around there. And I said, here's the only question I want you to think about as you come into this. And so we got together and we were talking about this particular question. How can the Greater Cleveland Church of Christ not just survive, but really thrive in the next 10 years? And my reason for asking that question is throughout our family of churches, we've kind of hit like this little stagnation point where not a lot of churches are really growing. We're not shrinking necessarily, but we're just kind of, I don't know, we're just kind of getting by, if that makes sense. And I've definitely felt that my first few years here in Cleveland. Up until recently, that's kind of what it's been like. Like, oh man, it's been hard. It's been hard to find people to, there's not been a lot of baptisms. There's not been this, there's not been that. And we even saw our membership dip to about 85. Now, fortunately for us, the last 2 years have been sensational, especially in the growth department. We counted it up, and over the last 24 months, so last 24-month period, we've had 24 people either baptized or restored. That doesn't count people who have moved in or anything like that. And our church is up over 100 again. Yay, we're happy about that. And so we're happy about that. But as we want to look to the future, we want to kind of look at like, well, where are we going and like how can we get the church once again to really thrive? Not play this game where we're kind of hovering around 100 members and all that, but how can we really move forward and get our church to 150 disciples, get our church to 200 disciples? And so that was kind of the conversation that we brought into this last leadership retreat that we had together. And so we sat around a breakfast table for about 3 hours and talked. And one of the reasons that I asked this question has to do with this book that I've been reading called Historical Drift. And boy, does it have a fun title there. Historical Drift, Must My Church Die? Well, it's pretty discouraging, but that's okay. But the idea of this book, kind of the summary of the book, is that, or the theory that the guy presents is that churches and really any type of organization, but churches especially, if you give them roughly about one generation, I don't know, what do you want to define that by, 20, 25 years, you're going to see a significant drift. And specifically, you're going to see them drift in the area of their vision, their core values, and their passion. That over time, vision dims, core values shift, and passion fades. And he goes through and he just kind of explains the book. Or, I'm sorry, he explains the book. He explains kind of how this happens. And, as I was reading this book this year, it was honestly, it's pretty alarming. I was reading it and I'm like, oh man, that's us. Like, this kind of feels like what we are going through, not just in Cleveland, but just overall in the International Church of Christ. And, typically when churches start, they start off with a great amount of passion. They've got a great vision for the future, and they've got just some core values that they stick to that are holy to them and that they hold to, and that's just the way that it is. And the book will says that, give it about one generation and you're going to see a shift or a drift rather in this vision and passion and core value. Give it two generations and you're going to see a major change from what it once originally was from the start. And give it three generations, and you're lucky if it's even alive anymore. But if it is, it's going to look very, very different. And I, I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, because I think for those of us who have been around, if you're a 90s disciple, meaning you became a Christian in the 1990s, you have probably experienced this. You've probably, if you look back and you remember what church vision used to look like, and what the passion used to look like, and what the core values we had, you would probably agree with me that there has been a shift. Now, some of the shift is good, right? Because it's not like you always start off on the perfect course. So there's some drift that's good because you're drifting back to what it should be, but there's a lot of drift that can be bad. And just as an example of this, I feel weird just staring into it. Let me see if I can stop share maybe, huh? Boom, I'm back. Am I back? Okay. Anyway, um, if you if you if you just look at history, you'll see it. There was recently a little conference of the Methodist Church, and they put all the leaders together, and they have a yearly conference and blah 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 blah. And there's a lot of jokes that were going around that I watched some of it, and basically what the joke was like, I cannot believe that this is the highest level of church governance, and this is how they're acting. And what was happening is that you had to identify yourself at the beginning. I was actually going to show the video, but it's a little too It kind of makes a too big of a mockery, so we're not going to show the video. But people had to share they had to share their sexuality, and oh yeah, I'm a cisgendered this, and I'm a lesbian this, and I'm this, and I go by, and you had to do your pronouns, and like just things that you would think that the top level of a church that's trying to follow the Bible, you'd think they wouldn't need to do this, and yet that's how much they drifted. Then the 1700s, when the Methodist Church started with the Wesley brothers, they were the hottest church on the planet a few hundred years ago. They were really willing to stand up against things that were wrong in the Church of England. They were passionate about kingdom living, and they started a movement that ended up sweeping through the United States. They were on it. Like they had so much going for them. And just to think, oh, look at this, give it a couple hundred years, and now the church looks nothing like what it originally was based upon, the core values and all those sort of things. And I think we're fooling ourselves if we think that we're above it, because we're not. And honestly, it's happening. And so I want to share a couple scriptures with you guys here. Let me go back to my share screen here. All right, I'm back. Oh, I see my screen. Cool. Okay. And let's look at the scriptures. The Bible says here, oh, well, that's what I get for stopping it and starting it. Oh, there it went. Okay, I think I got it, guys. Yay. How about the book of Judges? The Bible says that after that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. In one generation's time, all the stories about Moses, all the Red Sea, all that, it was gone. It was gone. They didn't pass it down. And Israel started looking very different in just one generation. When you look at the church was born basically in AD 30. And the Galatian churches were founded after that, maybe AD 40, maybe AD 45, somewhere around there. And in AD 57, Paul says this to the churches throughout the Galatia: I am astonished that you are so quickly deserting the one who called you to live in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. Galatians 1, verse 6. This is 15 years, 20 years after the church was established. And he's saying, man, we're turning away to a completely different gospel. I think about First Corinthians, also written somewhere around 57 AD. And you read about the division and the sexual sin, and the people are getting drunk during communion. 15 years, and the church is looking way different than what it was originally founded on. You can go to Revelation chapter 2 and 3, and there's these churches that have been established for maybe two generations. And Jesus is saying things like, I'm about ready to take away your candle. I'm about ready to take away your light. Like they're about ready to lose it. And so we see that in a very short period of time, short being defined by a generation or two, you can really, really start to drift and to go astray. And I was thinking about this. Actually, I don't think I said this in the original one, but we had this situation with. Let me stop share for a second. All right, bonus material. This wasn't in Sunday's thing, but I had this brilliant idea this year. And this brilliant idea was, man, we're having a hard time, even though we've got a lot of disciples that have been around this church for a long period of time. We are having a hard time getting, having a hard time getting people to want to lead groups. I said, I know what I'm going to do. We're going to dumb this thing down a little bit. And we're not going to ask people to be leaders of groups anymore. Rather, we're just going to call them to be facilitators of groups. That way, they don't have to do much of anything. They can just plan out whenever the small group midweek's going to be, maybe make a couple calls on, maybe, forward a couple emails and, hey, that's great. And I was like, all proud of myself. Like, oh, I'm so brilliant. Like, look at the way we're just creating more group leaders. Like, wow, this is really good. And then I read this book and it just made me stop in my tracks and go, oh gosh, I'm doing exactly what the book is saying not to do. The book is saying the way out of this is you got to double down and you can't drift from this stuff. You need to double down. And typically what people do is they go the opposite way and they try to make it easier. And I'm reading this book and I'm like, oh, yeah, brilliant idea there, Ryan, on the group facilitators. Like, let's just try to make this thing as easy as possible. And I realized very quickly, this is not the direction that we want to head. This is not what we want to do. And so I kind of brought all this to the leadership team and all these different thoughts, and we really got to thinking. And, we concluded that we've drifted. I don't think that's too hard of an assessment to make, but we've drifted in the last 30 years. We've been up and running as a church now for what, 31, 32 years? We've drifted. And it's hard to say, oh, look, here's the numbers on our drift. It's hard to substantiate it, but I tried. And so I want to show you something. Now, this is not it's not like we were counting things up, but we started talking about midweeks, and I asked the small group leaders to try to give an assessment of how often were people going to attend midweek. Not that midweek's the end all be all of everything, but it's something. And so back in the day, I know we all love to hear that phrase, especially if you're young. You love to talk about us talking about the glory days. I'm kidding. But back in the day, midweek attendance was always pretty good. It was well over 75%, felt more like 90%. It was part of counting the cost that, hey, if I'm going to be a disciple, I need to be at midweek. I need to change my job. That was kind of the standard that we had. And I just think about like where have we gone? And so we asked there's a lot of percentages going on here. So let me kind of explain this here a little bit. But this is first off, I asked kind of everybody like, hey, out of everybody in your group, um, who comes, 75 to 100% of the time, meaning they're there 3 out of 4 times. The only time they miss is, a work related something, a school related something, something like that. Who's like totally committed on this? And then who's kind of beyond behind that? Who are people that come maybe 50 to 75% of the time, or 25 to 50%? Who are what people? How many people do we have that are really basically not coming to midweek, or if they do, maybe it's once a month? And here's the numbers. So the good news is 52% of our congregation is in this top level, which I'm happy about that. All right, that's good. So basically, a little over half our church is really committed to coming to midweek. There we go. There's another quarter of our church, though, that's in this kind of 25 to 75% range of kind of coming to midweek, right? Probably classifying and in the, well, if there's nothing else going on, I guess I'll go to midweek, or, I don't know. People have got all kinds of different reasons for different things. But that's a pretty big number to kind of not be really all in on midweek. And then this blue section is people that basically either don't come to midweek or rarely come to midweek. And 26% of our congregation is in that realm. Well, that's not awesome. That's not what we want. And again, please hear me when I say this. This presentation is not about midweek. That's not it. It's much bigger than midweek. It's an overall, where are we as a church and how have we drifted? This is just one example that's a little more tangible than other examples can be. And so I put it up there. So that's kind of where we are. Things are good in the church right now. They're good. We've got, okay, that's close. It's good. Like, hey, we're growing again. That's awesome. I feel like church services are lively. This is not the sky is falling type of message. That's not what it's intended to be, but it's more of just kind of an update of what the leadership team wants to be focused on, is how can we get back to kind of that passion that we once had? How can we get back to that vision that we once had? How can we get back to our core values that we started upon? And so here's where we're going to take kind of a right turn. What we've typically done in the past is, what we do as a leadership team, or any leadership group for that matter, they're going to try to assess different issues and then address the issues. And so we've kind of assessed this is what we think an issue is. And so now our next step is we're going to tell you what our solution is. But rather than us tell you the solution, we actually want you to tell us the solution. We want you to be part of the solution. And a book I was reading had this example. And so bear with me on this kind of silly example, but it represents the approach that we want to take for the rest of the year, getting us ready for 2026. And the approach that we want to take. So there was this guy, Steve, I believe it was Stephen Covey, writes a lot of leadership books. And he takes his son out, or maybe he was the son, I don't quite remember, doesn't matter. And his dad went for a walk, and he and his dad were on this walk. The boy was probably about 8 years old. And he said, hey, let's stop at every yard and let's take a look and tell me what you see. What do you like about this yard? What do you not like about this yard? And the boy would point out things like, oh, there's a lot of trash, or oh, the lawn needs to be mowed, or, whatever. No, this one's really good. Look, it's really tidy. And he just kept doing that with them. And then they got back to their own home. And he asked his son, hey, well, what do you think about our yard? Where do you think we need improvement? And so the boy, now kind of trained in this idea of having an eye for this, said, well, yeah, like there's a problem over here, and we've got some trash that's accumulated over there, and da 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 da. And the dad said, okay, I would like to appoint you as the leader, as the lawn leader. And what I would like you to do, and I want to put you in charge of making sure that our lawn is green and clean. And green and clean was the way to go, meaning any kind of dead spots, we got to fix those. We got to make sure it's all clean. We want a sharp looking yard. That's what we want. And he put his 8-year-old son in charge of it. And then he told his 8-year-old son, since you're the boss, I am your assistant. You tell me what to do and I will get it done. You tell me what we need to buy, we'll buy it. And the idea was, it was talking about kind of an empowering type of leadership where you let the like people often have a lot of answers inside of them, even the 8-year-old boy. And when they own it and they are passionate about it, great work starts to take place. Well, there's a lot more people, a lot more awesome people in this church than just the leadership team. And so what we've done, a la Melissa, it's kind of funny. Melissa and I did not know we were both doing this. We also have come up with a survey. That survey has actually already been emailed out to you. And we too have a QR code that is, I hope, working. And it's got a number of different questions. And I want to actually go over the questions with you all here tonight. Share my screen. Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, I see what I need to do from current slide. Boom. Okay, we're back to the midweek slide and forward. Okay. So they're big questions. They're not small. We don't want you, we want you to spend more time than Derek spent filling out his wife's survey. Because I really want to hear from you. And we're going to take a lot of time to kind of digest all of your thoughts and try to come up with a game plan of really moving the church forward. And so the first question, we have 4 questions, but they're kind of meaty questions, if you will. So the first one is, what are the strengths of the Greater Cleveland Church of Christ? What are the things that we're doing well? What keeps you coming back? Why do you choose this church? There's a bazillion churches out there in the Cleveland area. Why do you choose this one? Why do you drive the distance you do to come to this one? We want to hear about those sort of things. So what do you see as some of our strengths and what keeps you coming back? So that's question 1. Question 2. On the flip side, what are some weaknesses of the church? And what suggestions do you have to improve these weaknesses? These can be anything. This can be something super specific, like I don't like the color of the bathroom walls. I don't know how, well, maybe not that specific. But you can put whatever you want. Whatever you see is like, boy, this is a weakness. Maybe it's a big picture thing, like maybe it's whatever you guys see, we'd like to hear from you. And again, I think as we kind of accumulate from 100 different people what they think, we'll start to see some patterns and see if we can figure some things out. Don't just point out the problems, but also the suggestions you have to improve on those weaknesses. That is kind of the key to this, right? And it's real easy to find problems. We're in a culture right now where it's really easy to point fingers and to find problems and things. And it doesn't mean those aren't real, but we want to also be solution oriented. So what suggestions do you have to improve those weaknesses? Question number 3. All right, this one's kind of big, 3-parter. And this one is going to be obviously about midweek. We do want to reevaluate midweek and figure out how to make sure it's accomplishing what we want it to accomplish. We want midweek to really strengthen you spiritually. We're not looking to entertain you per se, but we want to strengthen you spiritually. We want you to want to be there. And so with that in mind, midweek attendance has been in decline. A, what do you see as a reason for this decline? B, are you still committed to attending midweek? And then C, how can we improve midweek services to best help you spiritually and relationally? Maybe we need more small group midweeks. Maybe we need a different format. Maybe we need Bible study. I don't know, whatever you have in mind. We'd love to hear from you on that. Because again, we are, I said this on Sunday, man is not made for midweek, but midweek is made for man. Meaning, I don't want us to come to midweek simply out of obligation. I want us to come because we want to be there. I want midweek to serve the church. And so whatever best way we can do that, That's what we want to do. Fourth and finally, I'm going to talk about our discipling relationships. And one of our core values has been discipling relationships. We also call them cross-training relationships. Do you still want to be in a discipling relationship? And how can we improve in this area as a church? I feel like when it's something that we talk about and something that we focus on, we see it improve. But the moment we stop talking about it, it kind of goes away. And only the people who are really committed to them make discipling relationships really work, make cross-training relationships really work. So just love to hear from you on that. Where do you stand on this? Do you still want to be in something like that? And how can we improve? Okay, so those are the questions. You didn't need to write those down because they're all in the Google form. We both used a Google form as well. And I want to kind of give you a timeline of what we're looking at here. So what we originally said was that by August 31st, that's this Sunday, we'd like all the surveys to be complete. We are going to push that back a bit simply because we didn't get a great attendance and we don't want to rush it. And so we can probably put an extra week on that. But we really want you to give thought and complete the survey. The way that this particular survey is being sent out is you can do it in stages. That's at least how I think we've got it. So if you want to read one and you write one answer and then you want to wait a little bit until your next answer, that's fine. You can log back in and it will pick up where you left off. That's the attempt anyway. We'll see how well it goes. In September, leadership team is going to take all this data. We're going to read through it all. We're going to try to, make some sense of it because it's going to be a lot to read through. And sometime in October, we'd like to give some type of preliminary presentation on here's some of the findings, if you will. And so ideally, we'll have that done for a midweek and we can go over all of that. Throughout November, we want to develop a plan of, okay, this is what's changing here, or this is what we're getting back to in the Greater Cleveland Church of Christ. And we very well might use your one of your answers. We might call you and say, hey, I like this idea. Tell us more about it. Maybe even bring you into a few meetings if we need to kind of come up with a plan so we can work together. Ideally, at the beginning of January, we will implement this new plan and we will be off and running. And we will be a passionate church. We will be a zealous church. We will be a church that sticks to its core values, and it will be amazing. So we'll have passion, we'll have vision, and we'll be back to our core values, and it'll be great. So that's what I have for you here tonight. At this point, if anybody wants to ask any questions, you go right on ahead. I'm going to stop the recording, and that's a wrap.